Okay, you're told that R1 and R2 are the roots to a standard quadratic equation, and then they ask you what the sum of the roots is and the product of the roots. This is a typical thing that students in algebra have to memorize. All right, let's go through it though. So you're told these are the roots of the equation. They're saying what's the sum and what's the product of the roots. Well, I don't know the a, b, and c, other than the fact that I do know that it's a quadratic equation. That means a is not equal to 0. I use the quadratic formula, and I write down the root 1, root 2. And what do you get over here? Well, it's pretty easy to write that down. You know, minus b minus the root of b squared minus 4ac over twice a, minus b plus, it's plus or minus, but we got both of them. And if you write this down, though, you're going to add them together, so r1 plus r2. And what's nice about that, it's rather easy to add together. A common denominator, you would get minus 2b. And what happens over here? These roots disappear, which is good news, by the way. So what do you get over here? You would get minus b over a, which is indicated right over here. So again, a lot of students are told to memorize this. They're told to memorize that r1 plus r2, plus r2 is equal to minus b over a. They also ask for the product. We just did the sum, now let's do the product. How do you do the product? Well, we just did r1, r2, just write them down. And I multiply this out, and if you do that, I noticed the top are basically just conjugates. Now what do you get on bottom? Pretty easy. It's 4a squared. If you multiply the top out, what are you going to get? Well, minus p times minus b is b squared. And then you're going to get, let's see, they're conjugates. You're going to get minus, the two terms in the middle disappear. You get this over here. What does that give you? Well, the b squareds disappear, and minus of minus 4ac is plus 4ac over 4a squared. Well, I'm going to reduce that. The 4's cancel, and one factor of a cancels, and you're left off with c over a. Okay, this trick often appears on standardized tests, and be aware of that. For example, they might say, you know, what's the sum of the roots of this over here? Well, the bottom line, if you knew the trick, and again, the trick is, you know, the sum of the roots r1 for this equation over here, r1 plus r2, whoops, I did it again, plus r2 is basically pretty easy to do. We just draw the formula. So minus b over a. Looking at this thing over here, the b is 7 and the a is 4. What do you get there? You get minus 7 quarters. All right. Now I realize some students say, well, I couldn't memorize that or I couldn't derive it. I'll just simply do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. All right, let's go through that. So the equation, and again, the equation we're dealing with is 4x squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. And if you use quadratic form for that, you identify the a. The a is 4, the b is 7, and the c is 10. And the problem with this quadratic form is kind of cumbersome to put down, but you can write it down. And what do you get? Let's see, twice a, which is 8, the opposite of b, which is minus 7, plus or minus, here comes the tough part, the b squared is 49, minus 4 times 4, which is 16, times 10, 160. Well, I got a problem already. X equals, this is a complex root, plus or minus 8. That's going to be minus 111, so I'm going to say I root 111. All right, there's two roots there. And they said the sum of the roots, you could write that down. Of course, we know what the result is already. So it's going to be, you know, R1 plus R2. Well, that's going to be equal to minus 7 plus I root 111 over 8 plus minus 7 minus I root 111 over 8. What do you get there? You get minus 14 over 8, which is minus 7 quarters. All right. Again, my emphasis over here is that, you know, although I don't like tricks, all right, I really don't, they can be useful. All right. So having a few tricks may help you in the long run. All right. This is one trick. It's typically taught at the Algebra 1 level, and certainly students do forget it. The point about memorizing things, I don't think it's important, but you should be able to quickly derive these things. All right. Thank you.